Tonight, you will probably eat meat. You will not think about it. You will not question it. And yet the story of how that meat ended up on your plate stretches back millions of years, and it is stranger than anything you have been told. Because here is what almost no one talks about. Your ancestors did not always eat the way you eat. There was a period in human prehistory when early hominins moved away from meat, when the forest changed, when the teeth changed, when the gut changed. And then something shifted again. Something dramatic. Something that explains not just what you eat tonight, but how you think, how you love, and how you became the most socially complex creature on this planet. The real answer to why ancient humans stopped eating meat and then started again is far stranger than a simple diet story. It begins about 3.5 million years ago. Your ancestor at that time was not Homo sapiens. It was Australopithecus afarensis. You have probably heard the name Lucy, the famous skeleton discovered in 1974 by paleoanthropologist Donald Johanson in the Afar region of Ethiopia. Lucy was small, about a meter tall. Her brain was not much larger than a chimpanzee's, and her teeth told a very specific story. Look at the teeth of Australopithecus and you see something revealing. Large, flat molars, thick enamel, a broad, flat jaw structure built for grinding. These are not the teeth of a predator. These are the teeth of a creature that spent most of its time chewing plant material, seeds, tubers, tough, fibrous vegetation. Researcher Peter Unger at the University of Arkansas has spent decades analyzing ancient tooth wear patterns, and his findings are consistent. The earliest members of your lineage were overwhelmingly plant eaters. This makes evolutionary sense. The forests of East Africa during that period were dense and rich. Fruit was abundant. Leaves were everywhere. Meat was available, yes. Early hominins would scavenge opportunistically, but it was not the foundation of the diet. It was an occasional supplement. Then the climate changed. Between 2.5 and 3 million years ago, East Africa began to dry out. The forest fragmented. The lush canopy retreated. In its place came open savanna, grassland, and suddenly, the food that had sustained your ancestors for millions of years became scarce. This is where something remarkable happened. The fossil record shows a split. Some hominin lineages, the Paranthropus line, responded to the food crisis by doubling down on plant material. Their jaws got bigger, their molars got larger. They became specialists, built to grind the toughest, driest plant matter they could find. Researchers call them the robust Australopiths. They were physically impressive, and they went extinct. The other lineage, the one that leads to you, went in a different direction entirely. Around 2.6 million years ago, the first stone tools appear in the archaeological record. The Oldowan tool industry, named after Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. These simple flaked stones were not built for digging roots. They were built for cutting, for scraping meat from bone, for cracking open the marrow inside. Your ancestors had discovered something. Meat was calorically dense in a way that plants simply were not. Fat and protein in concentrated packages. And marrow, the soft, rich interior of animal bones, was a caloric jackpot, available to any creature clever enough to crack the bone open with a stone. Researcher Richard Wrangham at Harvard University has argued for decades that what truly transformed the human lineage was not just meat eating, but the control of fire. Cooking, he proposes, made meat and plant foods dramatically easier to digest. It broke down tough fibers. It killed pathogens. It increased the caloric yield of almost every food early humans consumed. And the evidence for early fire use, burned bones, hearth-like structures, begins appearing in the fossil record around 1.5 to 1 million years ago. With more calories came something unexpected, a bigger brain. The human brain is extraordinarily expensive. It consumes roughly 20% of your total energy budget, despite making up only 2% of your body weight. You cannot power a brain like this on raw tubers alone. The shift toward a more calorie-dense, protein-rich, cooked diet is one of the leading explanations for why the hominin brain expanded so dramatically between 2 million and 300,000 years ago. From about 600 cubic centimeters in early Homo habilis to nearly 1,500 cubic centimeters in Homo sapiens. But here is where the story gets strange. Because meat eating did not proceed in a simple straight line from ancient hominins to modern humans, populations across different environments developed radically different relationships with animal foods, depending on where they lived, what was available, and what their bodies adapted to over generations.
Some populations in coastal regions became heavily reliant on seafood. Others, in inland forest environments, remained largely plant-based. The Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer populations studied by researchers today, eat a mixed diet heavily weighted toward tubers, berries, and honey, with meat eaten opportunistically when hunts succeed. Anthropologist Frank Marlowe spent years living among the Hadza and documented something that challenges the popular image of early early humans as relentless big game hunters. Hunting, he found, was unreliable. Hunters often returned empty-handed. The backbone of the caloric supply was gathered plant food, particularly a starchy tuber called equa. Meat was celebrated, shared communally, given enormous social significance, but it was never guaranteed. This is a clue to something deeper than diet, because what meat eating seems to have shaped, beyond brain size, is your social architecture. When early humans brought down large game, a mammoth, a giant elk, a wildebeest, one creature could not consume it alone. The calories had to be shared, and sharing food at that scale requires trust. It requires relationships. It requires the ability to track who gave what, who owes whom, who can be counted on. Research by anthropologist Kim Sterelmy suggests that cooperative hunting and food sharing created the social and cognitive pressures that drove the development of language, of theory of mind, of the extraordinarily complex social bonds that define Homo sapiens today. You do not just eat meat. The act of sharing meat, or its equivalent, may be part of what made you human. So what does any of this mean for the plate in front of you tonight? It means that your relationship with food is not simple. It is not just preference. It is not just culture. It is the accumulated result of millions of years of environmental pressure, caloric need, social bonding, and biological change, all written into the structure of your body, the shape of your teeth, the wiring of your reward system when you smell something cooking. Your ancestors stopped eating meat when the forests gave them plenty. They returned to it when the climate forced a choice. They cooked it when fire changed everything. They shared it when survival demanded cooperation. And somewhere in that chain of decisions, made not in boardrooms or kitchens, but on open savannas under ancient skies, the social creature sitting here reading these words slowly came to be. Tonight, when you sit down and eat, you are not just feeding yourself. You are the living continuation of a story that started millions of years ago in a changing forest with a creature who had no choice but to adapt or disappear. Your ancestors adapted, and every meal you eat carries that ancient weight with it, whether you think about it or not.